I remember years ago, I was about to turn 40 years old and I had an opportunity to go and do a life plan, which was really cool, with my good friend Dan Webster, who really has become like a mentor slash coach to me through the years. And Dan does this. He brings people to his home, a couple days, pretty intense stuff. You can bring your spouse if you want. It's just incredible what happens with these business leaders and executives. So shout out to Dan there as we begin this week's show. But I had an opportunity to go and do this. And one of the things that I identified as I was thinking through what does winning look like for me was I wanted my life to be family friendly. I wanted my work to be family friendly. And I wanted every area of my life to be family friendly. I didn't say it this way back then, but I think I realized it all the way from the time that our family started. And it's this: if you win at work and you lose at home, you still lose. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Glad you're with us this week. We're talking about winning at home this month of August here, and I'll date it. It's 2021, and we're midway through, or about midway through August here as we drop this episode for you. And I've been thinking so much this year about winning. If you've been listening, you know we said we wanted this year to be our best year ever. And one of the ways I felt like that would happen would be if we could really focus on some of the things that happen, not just at work, but outside of work. Because I think what happens outside of work really positions you to win at work. And today I'm going to veer over a little bit into this family area of relationships. I talked about last week some of the things we're doing. So thanks for joining. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for all of you who are commenting and helping spread the word about our podcast. We're really grateful for that. And for those of you who watch on YouTube and share those links as well, the video side of things, that's awesome. So let's talk about relationships today. Last week we talked about values. As you know, in June and July, we talked about resetting for the year as we got halfway through the year. Like, what are the areas where you really need to focus and push hard as you go into the second half of the year. Now we're 6 weeks into the second half, and I think this question is really important. How are you doing on your push? And for me, as I went away a couple weeks ago for Beach Week, I really had a chance to do some thinking and some resetting in my own life. Some of the things really I've been talking to you about, and so we're sharing some of those with you. And so one of those was last week. We talked about our values. If you missed that episode, go back and download that. It was fun to talk about values, the things that are driving our behavior. Today, I want to talk about relationships. And because I think when we talk about winning at home, you can't talk about winning at home without at least talking about relationships, those family relationships that are important to us. I like that question that I dropped there at the beginning. How do I live my life in such a way that the people who know me the best love me the most? It's just to me, that's a really focusing question for me. It helps me focus on the way I think about the people who matter most to me. I've said this before, the people that I work with, the people I know, they think about some of this same kind of stuff, but I've also been around a lot of leaders who don't think about it enough. And truthfully, the people who know them the best end up respecting them the least. They make work their idol. They focus on that way too much. Not that work is not important. We're going to do an episode in a couple of weeks on work. Next week's going to be on habits. I think you're going to like both these next couple of episodes. But today, let's don't lose sight of the fact that if we start focusing on work and that's all we think about, and we don't really think about what happens at home, we're going to end up losing not just in our own lives, but we're going to lose some of the relationships and the lives around us that matter the most. And some of you know what I mean, you've seen this happen before. You've felt that. You've been a part of that. I mean, it's really it's just devastating when that happens. So let's think through today. How can we win when it comes to these relationships? And again, I hesitate to even say the word win and relationships in the same vein, because it's not a competition here. You're not competing with your spouse or your kids or whatever, but how do you win the hearts of the people that are around you? How do you make sure that you're living in such a way that they just say, man, I love her, I love him, I know they have my best interest at heart, and there's some of those things. So I got some really practical things today I think will help us. I'm going to give you two big ideas here at the beginning, And then I got a list of 10 things that you can actually do or they're gonna reveal to you some things that you can do. I think this is gonna be pretty fascinating. So I want to start back, and I want to go back to a couple things that it says in the Bible. You guys know, if you've been listening, that I'm a Bible reader. I love to read the Bible. I think it helps me really set my bearings for the day, but it gives me a foundation for my life. Compass. There's a church here in town that I heard the pastor say it this way. He says the Bible will make your life better, and it will make you better at life. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Every time I read the Bible, I feel like it makes my life better. And if I do what it says, it actually makes me a little bit better at life. So, and I'm trying to find all the help I can get. So hopefully you can give me that. But man, I'm telling you, if you don't read the Bible, you're missing out, because here's a couple things that it says in the Bible, and this will help your relationships, whether you read the Bible or not. This is really great stuff. Jesus, you've heard of Jesus before, whether you're a Bible reader or not. He made this statement. He says, treat others the way you want to be treated. I think that's just a great reminder. And man, when you think about your relationships, if you treat people the way you want to be treated, it's the golden rule, right? I didn't learn it from Jesus. I actually learned it from my mom. She taught me when I was a kid. This was one of the first things that I was taught as a child. You always need to treat people the way you want to be treated. Because I was like every other little kid. I wanted to treat people the way I thought they need to be treated, and I wanted them to treat me the way that I wanted to be treated. So it doesn't work if I go into the relationships thinking I want to be treated correctly without giving some thought to, like, how do I need to really treat other people? And we say all the time that the best leaders are servant leaders, and I think this mindset of how can I help other people have a great life? It was Zig Ziglar who said, a motivational speaker, he said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll always have what you want. And it's kind of about business and stuff, if you think about it that way, but that's really not what Zig was saying. It's actually about joy, and it's about relationship, and it's about love, and some of those kind of things. And so as you think about your family relationships, I want you to get those people in mind that you live with or that you're closest to. Are you treating them the way you want to be treated? Or are you expecting them to treat you in such a way that, or in a way, and you've really not been treating them the right way? So I think that's really great. That's just practical, baseline, golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. It works at work as well, not just at home. It works in your relationships everywhere you go. But if you want to take this to the next level, and that's the thing I love about the Bible, is it'll give us an idea, and then all of a sudden, a little later, it takes it to the next level. And so here's a verse that the Apostle Paul wrote, and I think if you can stack this on top of the golden rule, you're going to be well on your way to having great relationships. And here's what he said. He said, consider others as more important than yourself. Now, when you hear that, man, if you're not a Bible reader, you're probably glad you're not, because you're like, I don't want to be held to that standard. But if you think about it, if you will consider other people as more important than yourself, it's going to change the way you treat them. It's going to change the way you act toward them. It's going to change your expectations. It literally is going to encourage you to get on their side of the table and as I say, sometimes give them the home field advantage. I think a lot of times we want to have the home field advantage in our relationships. Like, I want to bat last. We'll work and give you what you need, but let's just make sure that I get what I need at the end of the day. And baseball season going on right now, and the team that bats last is really, they have an advantage. They're not necessarily positioned to win, but they do have an advantage. What would happen if in your relationships you gave other people the advantage? You said, I'm going to make sure as I begin that you need to understand, in my mind, you're more important than I am. And I think that's just such a great standard to push us to. So the question becomes, how do we do that? I mean, first of all, I'm selfish. I don't like treating people all the time like I want to be treated. Sometimes I like just treating them however I treat them, but I still want them to treat me the right way. And so the golden rule, I make it silver or bronze Olympic time, right? I'm not necessarily always golden in the way I treat people. And then when I take it, when you think about taking it to the next level, considering others is more important than yourself. Man, don't you love you some you? I can tell you, I love me some me. It's hard for me to go into a relationship and say, I want to make sure that I'm giving them the advantage. They're getting the home field advantage. But I'm telling you this, when I think about my wife, I think about my daughters, I think about my son-in-laws, my grandson, my mom still living, my brother, my sister, all my extended relationships. When I consider others as more important than myself, it makes my relationships better. Why would you not want to be close to somebody who is considering you as more important than themselves? And so these are two little secrets. If your relationships are off track at home, go back and think through that golden rule. Like, where have you not been treating people the way you expect them to treat you? And secondly, where have you been coming into relationships thinking about yourself, not about how important that other person is? And so I think those will be helpful to us. So I told you I had sort of a top 10 kind of way to apply this. I think it's easy to give you a question like, how do I need to live in such a way that the people who know me best love me the most? That's great, but what does that really mean? Like, how would I do that? And so I think these 10 little ideas will surface some stuff that will help you as you think about your relationships, and ultimately you position yourself to win at home, where not just you're winning, but everybody's winning. Your family, your home is a winning environment for everybody who lives there. So here's these 10 ideas, and they're all going to start with this idea of who needs, and I've got 10 words that I want to throw out there for you, and I think they'll help you think about it specifically. Somebody's going to come to mind as I talk through each one of these. We'll list them in the show notes for you, so you'll have these 10. But and maybe we can throw them up on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. But let me start with this: who needs your encouragement right now? Somebody in your home, somebody in your family, somebody in your extended family. Maybe it's your Aunt Martha or Uncle Joe. I don't know, but somebody right now is going through a hard time and they need your encouragement. Somebody that you're close to, somebody you want to be close to, somebody you want to have a great relationship with. So who needs your encouragement? And you'll think of what you need to do to encourage them. It might be a note, it might be a call, it might be a text, it might be in the middle of the day, phone call back to your spouse or someone and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you today. And maybe it's one of your kids. You have what it takes to do what's in front of you. So that's one. Who needs your encouragement? Here's the second one. Who needs your support right now? There's somebody in your family, they need your support. They've got a lot going on. It's weighty on them. They're carrying a lot of responsibility. And you may not even be able to help right now, but you can support them. You can make sure they know you're there for them, and your expectations are not going to add to their burden. Your expectations are going to be they're actually going to lighten their burden, because you're going to encourage them. You're going to be there for them. So that support can be huge. And I won't use reminder, who needs a reminder, as one of my 10 here, but I will just say part of support is just reminding people that you're there for them. You're with them. And so that's a great one. Here's the third one. Who needs your help right now? Support is like, I'm here for you, but help is like, I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm going to do something. I'm going to actually do something to lighten your load. I'm going to be able to add something to what it is you're up against. It's going to help you be able to conquer that problem or challenge or whatever it is. And so somebody right now needs your help in your family or in your close relationships. Maybe you can think of a specific way that you could step up and help somebody. We have all kind of opportunities built in. You can help people with homework. You can help people with cleaning the home. You can help people with kids if you have kids. You can cut the grass for your mom. That's one I get to do occasionally. I wish I could do that more. She's a couple hours away, but I love it when I get to go and just mow the pasture. So there's things you can do to help the people that mean the most to you. Here's another one. Who needs a challenge right now? Somebody in your family, I'm guessing, needs a challenge. Maybe you need to challenge yourself, but let's don't make this about ourselves today. Let's think about the people around us. Somebody in your family has more in them, and who needs your positive challenge? Let's say it that way, because sometimes we're just all about challenging, especially dads, like dads, we have this sometimes. We love to challenge people. I don't want to stereotype here. You may be a woman who loves to challenge people, but somebody in your family needs a challenge. Maybe some of you dads need to hear me say, who needs a positive challenge? Who needs support and help in the midst of that challenge? You get to figure all that out. But somebody specifically needs a challenge. Who needs coaching right now? Who needs coaching? Somebody in your immediate sphere, those relationships that mean the most to you, they need a coach. Maybe they need you to do some coaching for them. Maybe they need an outside coach that you help them get. I don't know, but I would encourage you to think through who needs some development, who needs to be coached to the next level. And so that's a good one. One of my daughters would love this one. Who needs celebrating right now? She is just a master at celebrating everybody and everything. She's amazing. And she needs to be celebrated for being such a celebrator. But for some of us, it's not our default mode to just think, oh, let me go celebrate somebody. And so you have a chance to identify someone and celebrate them. You say, well, what would that look like? Well, for us, one of the things we have is early in our marriage, we had a friend of ours who worked, she owned a Hallmark store and out in Texas, and she gave us a plate that's called the Red Plate. And this is a pretty cool little plate, plug for the Red Plate if you don't have one or if you've not seen one. But it just says you are special today on this. I think it was a German-made plate, something very cool. And this plate has been in our home. And if somebody, does something that they need to be celebrated, or maybe they're just having a hard day or whatever, this is one where we love to pull out the Red Plate. It's always a surprise. Sometimes it's a birthday or whatever you get it, but you don't always get it on your birthday. But we throw the Red Plate out, and the person gets to go first. They get to put their food on, and it's just you are special. And then we usually at that meal we get a chance to affirm that person and celebrate them. And I think we have this list that we keep in the box that the plate stays in. This plate only comes out once or twice a year, maybe 3 or 4 times a year at best. And we're up to maybe 80 something people who have eaten off this plate. It's always signed and dated. And we go back and look at all the people that have been celebrated. It's just a very specific way for us to remind us that there are people who need to be celebrated, and it's one way to do that. So you think of a way. Maybe somebody needs a party. Maybe somebody needs a special plate or a special dinner out. Yeah, there's lots of ways to celebrate. We kind of, if we're not careful, we can feel obligated on birthdays and anniversaries, and those things are fantastic. But who needs to be celebrated right now in your home? Find a creative way. We were able to, just a couple of days ago, my wife and I, there was somebody in our home they don't live with us anymore, but they're going through a challenge, and we just were able to stop by, get some flowers, take it to her. And, there's all kind of things you can do, but who needs to be celebrated? Who needs courage right now? This morning when when I got up, my wife had a friend who came over, an hour or so later, and I was asking her about her family. And one of the things she said, it was their daughter is getting ready to go off to college. And she said she's going in a couple of weeks here. And she said she's a little apprehensive. And I was just thinking about all my daughters who now have graduated from college and they're all out. But I remember a couple of them on that first, even the drive to school when they left home, it's easy for me, as an old guy, to not think about the courage that's needed to leave home for the first time. It's been a long time. I can't even remember when I left home. It's been that long. But somebody in your family is in a similar situation where they're trying to make the basketball team, or maybe your wife needs to go have a hard conversation with one of her friends, or maybe your husband is really struggling with something that he's trying to overcome. And so I don't know about you, but I know there are countless opportunities around my life it's kind of encourage, right? It's to put courage into someone. So who needs courage right now? This young woman who's going to college, there's a built-in opportunity for people to speak life into her, that she has what it takes and she can do this. And so who needs courage? A couple more here. I think I'm up to number 8. Who needs forgiveness right now? So many relationships are strained and they're struggling because people are are making it really hard for people to move on once something has happened that shouldn't have happened. And so if you think about this idea of forgiveness, so many times we withhold forgiveness. And it doesn't have to be some big something that they need to be forgiven for. I mean, it can just be they did something wrong a couple days ago in the kitchen or in the car or whatever, and you're still holding it. I mean, seriously, do we really want to hold things a couple of days, 3 or 4 days in a row, 3 or 4 months in a row, 3 or 4 years? I mean, I know people who are holding grudges for years in their family relationships, and somebody in your family perhaps needs forgiveness right now. And let me say this: you need to forgive them. It's as important. I mean, they need to be released, but you do too. If you're carrying around a grudge or bitterness against someone for something they've done, it's just going to be really hard for you to have a great relationship with that person. And honestly, it's hard for you to have a great relationship with yourself at that point, because you really need to release that. And you say, well, Randy, you don't understand what they did. I don't understand what they did. I'm not in your shoes. I don't know your situation, but I do know this: if you are holding bitterness and a grudge against someone else, especially somebody that you really love now or loved at one time, it is really hard for you to emotionally move on and have the life that you want as well. So somebody probably needs forgiveness. I'll build on that and say this. This is one that sometimes I have to do, but it helps the relationships when I do. Is somebody in your family right now may need an apology. Who needs an apology? They don't need to be forgiven. You need to be forgiven. And because you've messed up and you've done something wrong, or you've just gotten sideways, or your tone was not what it should be, or your motives were not what they should have been. And the next thing you know, you've gotten, things are kind of off kilter in that relationship. And so who needs an apology? Who needs an apology? Especially in your marriage, if you think about it. It's important to, both these, forgiveness and apology, it's important to make sure that you clear the slate every day. One of the things my wife, and I think this has really served us well, we're 34 years into our marriage right now, and it's certainly not perfect. I'm telling you, and if you've been married for a while, you know it's so hard to have a great relationship over time. We're over 3 decades in, and there are a lot of hard days in 3 decades, and some of it has been because we haven't forgiven each other, we haven't been willing to apologize, we haven't been able to own our stuff. But one of the things we did early on, we talked about early on, was let's don't let the sun go down on our anger or on our wrath. That's actually a verse from the Bible as well. And so it was just that way to remind us that we don't go to bed angry. And it is amazing how if you don't go to bed angry, it's impossible to be angry with each other 2 days in a row. Now, there have been some sleepless nights. There have been some nights we didn't really want to go to bed. We needed to still kind of work something out. But I think that's just a good reminder if you're married. But the same thing's true with your kids. You don't want to go to bed angry or have tension with your children or with your parents or anybody that you're close to. And so that apology can go a long way to say, hey, you know what? I really do want to be close to you. I'm sorry. I messed this up, and I need you to forgive me. And so, or if somebody does something and they're not, they know they messed it up, and they ask you to forgive them, to hold that grudge, you don't want to do that. So it's great to be able to say, hey, I want you to know I forgive you. So right now, as you think about your family, you think about the people closest to you, those relationships that matter most, who needs forgiveness and who needs an apology? Maybe it's one or the other, but one of those might trigger something that comes to mind. And then finally, I just would land with maybe the most important one, and that's who needs love. If you're going to win at home, it's going to be because you're going to love first. And you say, what do you mean by that? Well, if you think about your first response, it needs to be one of love. It needs to be one of even sacrifice and forgiveness and unity. And I mean, there's so many things that go into being patience and kindness and gentleness, all those things that make up what are called the fruits of the Spirit, or the fruit of the Spirit. Again, you can go back and check that out in the Bible if you've not heard of that list. But it's so important for us to love people and to make sure that they know, no matter what, I am here for you. I've got your best interest at heart. And when I have that mindset, all of a sudden things just get a lot better for me as well. And yet I want to remind us all as we kind of bring this to a close here. Love is about a motive. It's really not, it's not a feeling, what's the old, love is not a noun. It's a verb. It's actually something you do. You love people. You don't fall in love. You fall in a hole. Think about that. But you grow in love, and you do love, you demonstrate love. And so as you think about the people that you're closest to, those relationships that matter most, who is it right now that needs to know you love them, and you need to show that, you need to demonstrate that in a very tangible way? And you'll think of what that is, you'll know what that is, but I'm betting somebody comes to mind right now. It's hard to live with people who don't need love. I mean, all of us do, right? And so somebody right now needs your love. I encourage you to go demonstrate love in a very tangible way and watch what happens. So all that list, I think that'll be important. Again, we'll throw it in the notes here. But let me just remind you that if your relationships are working, your life's going to be working pretty well as well. And so it really is important to start with that big question: how do I live my life in such a way that the people who know me the best love me the most? I don't want to get to the end of my days, and the people that I had, the biggest opportunity to enjoy relationship with, to have impact upon their lives, to let them have impact on me. I don't want to forfeit all that because I was so, focused on work. I think you really can have, people say you can't have it all. I really think you can have a great career, and I think you can have a great family. But a lot of it comes back to making a focused choice that's what you're going to go after, that you're going to ultimately win at home. And I believe winning begins at home. And so that's where we start. So thanks for listening this week. Pick one of those areas that from that 10, go find somebody in your family to celebrate or to encourage or to support or help, somebody to forgive, somebody to apologize to, ultimately somebody to love. And if you'll do that, I'm confident that your home life can get better this next week. So we'll jump back in next week. I'm going to talk to you about habits, some of the habits that I think, and ways to form the right habits in our lives, habits that can help you go toward high performance. But this week, again, I wanted to focus on relationships. I thought that was important. You can't have your best year ever if things at home aren't where they need to be. Encourage you to encourage your friends and family and people that you know who need to hear this stuff. Shoot this out to them. Send them a link. Leave your comments as well. We love that, interacting with you. So if you've got a thought on any of this, help us out. If there's some other things, you'd add to our who needs list, some ways, some creative ways that you're thinking to improve those relationships at home, drop those in there. All our audience here will benefit from that. And so we'll see you next week. Remember, winning begins at home. If you're going to chase greatness, it's got to start with those people around you who matter most.